Marama, this has been the really big news this week. It's been the big news, hasn't it? And this is
Slow news
and
week.
this is the as one journalist said, hysterical crap from the Maori Party. Why don't you want Helen Clark to be the next Secretary General of the UN?
It's not about whether or not we want Helen Clark to be the Secretary General. Helen Clark stood up and said, I stand by my record. All we've said is this is her record. Her record is that she unrolled some legislation that took away land rights for Maori in this country, which saw one of the biggest ever protests. She ignored Indigenous rights when she refused to sign up for the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, of which she is now tasked to implement. She also was the Prime Minister at the time of the Tūhoe raids. You know, no remorse ever. All we're saying is we do not support her, and we have the right to say that.
If Dame, all right.
Thank you.
If Dame Tariana Turia, who sort of walked out because of the foreshore and seabed legislation, if she can say, you know what, that Helen Clark's done some bad things, but actually she's done a lot of good things and I support her, why can't you?
Well, Dame Tariana Turia also said, if you look at her press release, that if she was the co-leader of the Maori Party today, she would do the same thing as we have done, because we have stood up for the people who have told us, you cannot support it. We support our party, we support our people. And in fact, you know what? Paul Henry had a... Sorry,
Paul Holmes.
Sorry. Paul Henry. Paul Henry had a poll that said, did Marama commit treason? Now, 62% of the people said, yes, she did. 38%...
Winston says you did.
Well, 38% of the people said, no, she didn't. And if it got to 99%, then we'd be worried, because that would eat into our
vote. All right,
vote.
well, let's jump over to Labour here. What about, is it... What's the record? What's Labour's record around this? Not very good. Why doesn't Helen Clark apologise?
Let's be really clear about the facts. First thing
we are clear.
The police are operationally independent. The government takes no responsibility for the Tūhoe raids, nor should they. That's a police decision of which we were informed afterwards, and I was there.
That's not
Secondly, I was there with Helen in that government for 9 years, and I can tell you no one cares more passionately about equal rights for Māori and the benefit and the welfare of Māori people than she does. And what I can say about this is the desperate attempt of a party that's rapidly becoming irrelevant to get some airtime. That's what we're talking about.
No, it's not.
And it is treasonous.
If David Cunliffe
It is treasonous because, no, I'm sorry, Helen Clark, at a time when the world needs great leadership, Helen Clark is so obviously the best qualified candidate that we are doing the entire world a disservice by sending messages around the globe that she's not fit for it.
Okay, I want to jump in the middle to the listening people of Palmerston North. Who do you agree with?
Look, I'm going to sit on the fence a
No,
little bit.
you're not allowed to. This is backbenchers. You're not allowed to. Who do you agree with?
No, I agree with supporting... Excuse me. Anyway... As I was saying, look, I support the idea that we support Helen Clark as being the
so
next
you agree with Labour?
No, because I agree with Helen Clark
your boss does.
being the UN Secretary General next, and I think it's great for us to get behind a New Zealander to do that.
So
however, it's not treason for somebody to actually express their own opinion. Last time I checked, this was a democracy, and people were allowed to say, hey, guess what? I disagree. This is my view.
Okay, John, so Winston's wrong. So Winston's wrong.
Winston's wrong. It's not treason.
Well,
I mean, treason is actually results in your country getting bombed or something.
David, I'm going to ask you a question. And then Marama.
Thank you.
Labour was only one of 4 countries out of 150 that didn't sign the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. What was the reason?
Because our domestic legislation was not in a position
Rubbish.
where we could have
Rubbish.
honestly said it was ready to be implemented. So Labour had the integrity to say, we'll sign that when we can live up to it. We're not going to pay lip service to it. We're not going to be a once-over lightly party. That talks, hang on, that talks about, during the daytime, talks about civil rights and then goes and votes to keep in power a government that's trashing life for Maori people.
Helen Clark called it divisive.
All right. I want some cheers.
Wait on.
Cheers for Helen Clark.
Yes.
And cheers for not Helen Clark.
Yeah! Woo!
Okay, that's interesting.
Wait on.
Marama.
Now, listen. He's rewriting history. Helen Clark called the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples divisive. Those 4 nations were Australia, Canada, America and New Zealand, some of the countries that have the worst records against people who are Indigenous in their countries in the world. Those were the 4 countries that we wanted to be beside.
Look,
not because they thought it was right,
hey,
but because it was divisive. Just one more thing. If David Cunliffe was the Prime Minister at the time, he would have apologised because he's very good at doing things like that. He'll apologise for all sorts of things.
Wow, that deserves a bit of a response.
And my response is, if I was Marama Fox, I would not have had the lack of grace to criticise someone trying to do a terrific job for the world who has 100 times the experience and guts she does.
Guts.
Wow.
Wait on, hold on, here we go.
All right,
No. It would be easy. It would be easy as anything to jump on board the popular politics of this country. But when you put your hand up and you dare to have a difference of opinion, do you know what Moana Jackson said to me? He said, "Welcome to the club, Marama. This is the club of Maori leaders who have stood up and opposed the tyranny of the majority and been called traitor." Thank you.
I admire people that stand up for principles, and I admire Marama Fox generally for her role in politics. But pick an issue that matters. Don't undermine one of New Zealand's greatest Prime Ministers.
Rights matter.
They do matter. They do matter. So vote Labour and get rid of a government that's trashing the position of Māori in New Zealand.
All right. Feisty, we've got to move on. Are you enjoying your beer, Jono?
Look, I mean, that's about all there is for me to do here. Although I've got to say, when he talks about trashing the position of Māori New Zealand, what we've got at the moment is a government that actually over the last 7.5 years has actually settled more treaty claims, has done more to empower Māori than was done in the previous 9 years, and is working alongside the Maori Party to do all that we can.